Welcome to Customer, the strategic view. And today we're going to be talking about mistakes in CX strategy and how to fix them. And to help me explore that, I'm very delighted to have Brian Manusama with me. And Brian, would you like to start just explaining a little bit about background, experience, the kind of people you talk to, the kind of topics? Because I think that positions how we're going to attack the overall topic today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and being here. It's wonderful to engage with you always, as we have been doing for, I don't know, the last 15 years or so. But to give you to give everybody a quick introduction into myself, Brian Manusama. I think when I prepared this question, I was thinking I've been in customer engagement probably for 30 years or something like that. But I started off in hotel management. I was a hotel manager around the world for the Marriott hotel chain for many years. So I think that that's why customer is in my whole career for the last 30 years. But obviously, I transitioned from hotels into IT, which is a bit of a strange move. But when I explained to you that in probably 1999 or 2000, of the beginning of that, all the shift came from not being a product leader, not being about operational excellence, but being about customer experience. It started to make more sense to go into companies and help them be more customer centristic. And that's the first company I did that with ABN AMRO Bank. In the Netherlands, with all of their call centers, with the email management at the time, and live chat and closing offices, in favor of all of those digital channels that was out there. So the one thing that I was lacking is having a good understanding of the technology. So I am asked to be employed by one of the most technical strategic companies in the Netherlands, and they basically shaped me into IT. And I think what my good fortune is there in that is that I have a good understanding of the business, of what customers want, but also having a good understanding at the moment of what technology can do for them in that respect. So here's where my passion comes together: technology and customer, which I could have done the last 10 years at Gartner. And I just came from a previous career move to CM.com, where I was the chief strategy officer. And CM.com is a CPaaS company looking into communication capabilities to make organizations more customer centric.
Excellent. Because I think one of the things that fascinates me is we can clearly see the results of poor strategy from the end
Yes.
customer back. You sit in contact centers, and I've spent some time this week talking to people who see that reality. And again, it still remains oftentimes just a never-ending checklist of clearing stuff up,
Absolutely.
and we know what the vision is, but we find it difficult to execute. And so today, one of the things I'm hoping you can maybe pull apart the curtain a little bit is what happens at the very most senior levels where the conversation initially gets kicked off, because there's got to be something that doesn't quite cascade as intended from that audience down through operational management to eventually, the people who are engaging with customers, building experiences, and the resulting gap that we still think both of us see out there in the marketplace in a way that really shouldn't, at the end of the day. So let me start off with a quote that you gave me, by the way, which I think is a great one, which sort of like, you wanted to make this point that the way in which we're building and orchestrating customer experience and engagement is short-sighted, short gains, bad strategy, and a lot more, which I think is a very, very punchy way of talking it. I share the same sentiment, but unpack that statement for me based on experience and why you've come to that conclusion.
Sure. The short answer for me is poor design. And in other words, the way customer experience or customer engagement is being designed within an organization. Unpacking that a little bit, I think that there's four things that are missing. So first of all, it is very much about the inability for organizations to really understand customer perspective and the journey customers are on, actually. The most compelling digital experiences that we see out there in the market have a compelling understanding of who the customer is, who they are, what they want, what job they have, and even how they feel about themselves. So the empathy element is extremely important. But that's lacking with a lot of organizations. Today, I am a board advisor for a loyalty management vendor that is out there. And they talk obviously a lot to retail, and they talk a lot to FMCG type of companies who have loyalty management programs. If you ask them about what they actually really know about their customers, it is little to nothing, which is pretty shocking to me. So if you have the inability to really understand what the customer perspective is and what his journey is through your organization, you have nothing. There's no way of understanding how to delight them and give them a good experience.
Let's start with that point. I think that's dead interesting. Customer listening. Certainly,
Yes.
just look at it from the point of view of the technology platforms out there and some of the values that they've managed to accrue over the years. They're clearly big. They're clearly important. Right the way down to traditional speech analytics. If you're in a contact center, whatever you want, even a good old-fashioned survey. There's lots of ways to reach out to customers, and if you can't afford that, go and sit in front of them and talk to them. And yet, one of the points I noticed, particularly in contact centers, and the issue at the moment about not delivering channels and workflow that actually allow the outcome, is that not enough people drink the champagne in the sense of checking out, like the way you talked about being in the hotel hospitality trade. You're constantly checking that everything is perfect, everything works. It's just by second nature, and raising the standards in the teams. And it's a never-ending challenge to make sure that excellence operationally is there every single minute of every single day. And yet I notice that people can use things like NPS or feedback or any of those kinds of things, but it gives them an abstracted, distant view as opposed to a realistic view of really what the customers need. So for you, when we talk about, look, first of all, base it on customer, is it because they haven't even got the tech, the systems, the process? Is it because they're listening? No, they're not listening. They're hearing but not listening and not acting on it. Or what or is the mindset sort of so about me and my agenda that I never really get your reality as a customer? Where do you think the gap and the problems are sitting there?
Well, it's a lot about disalignment, disjointed. That's the first and foremost thing. I know that for the last 25 years, we talked about breaking down the silos. That was such a term that everybody was using, whether I was in CRM to whether I was in customer service or whether I am in customer experience world. We also breaking down the silos. The truth is, after 30 years, the silos are not broken yet. So that's where the problem still comes in. Even though the number of customer experience managers, those who are responsible for the customer, that used to be my number one question. If somebody wanted to have a customer strategy, asking who is owning the customer, and then they would say nobody, or they would say everybody. But I said, okay, is there nobody within your organization that feels that they own the well-being of the customer? And that's where it all started, and whether you talk to a telco, an auto dealer, an insurance company, or or whoever. So I think that we're trying to solve it by bringing in a customer experience officer who sort of has an overview of the contact center, the website, all of the digital channels, self-service that is out there, maybe the stores, and in bringing a unified way of how you need to do that. I think that's a good first step, but that's the first step of breaking down the silos, but there's still a lot of disjointment out there. And then, your second point is also very right. I am in my today operation and I'm doing the best that I can, I have no time to really lean back and get a better understanding of, okay, who should I be working with in order to understand that whole journey that is out there. I was talking to a bank. Well, I've been talking to that bank a couple of years, but I was talking to them recently, let's say 2 months ago or so. They were telling me that they still have an enormous amount of journey managers. Journey managers, what did they actually do? They transitioned customers manually from one person to another person, from one channel to another channel, just in order to give them a better experience. And they didn't have 5 of them or 6 of them. They had 65 of them that were actually doing that. So,
Wow.
with all the
Wow.
automation that is out there, with all the wishful thinking about providing a good customer experience, with all the data that we have, and the complexity is also a big issue that is out there. The complexity of organizations, the complexity of IT landscape, the complexity of owning the customer, the complexity of your only day job operations that is out there.
So if you're sitting in the top table with that conversation going on, maybe starting, let's imagine, with a historic slide talking about the origins of the modern organization, which decided to actually get efficiency by dividing people into clear teams, with managers and tick lists, and focusing that as a means of productivity, which has basically been the template, hasn't it, of how everything worked.
Yes.
I mean, in a fantasy world, I would probably say to the CEO, close your business down for 2 years and be brave enough to rebuild it. Rebuild it horizontally, not vertically. Just think through what the problem is these days and do it. Because at the moment, the only thing that seems to work is coming from the bottom up, which is not a bad thing, but it seems to be based upon agile, often cross-functional, diverse teamworks who transcend those silos, transcend the accountability pressures that are making me think just about my patch, not about yours, and starting to build end-to-end design in spite of it all. But to me, though, that's still an uphill battle, which could be greatly facilitated if people from the very top had the courage to do something different about the fundamental design. But it's a difficult thing because you're holding on to the numbers every year. There's enough going on. The last thing you want to do is to confuse everybody. But to you, although it's more academic than realistic, do you think that's one of the causes of the problem, which is that we haven't actually got organizational structures that support what we're really trying to achieve in CX?
So the answer to your question is yes, but it's also tremendously difficult to do that. And let's unpack that first. I've seen companies that have tried to not look into marketing, sales, service, and finance, etc., from a departmental perspective, in sort of flipping the organization and saying, no, I have SMB customers, I have enterprise customers, and I am going to make my organization around the customer. I think still that is a very good thought that we should see more often, because then we're breaking down the silos, then we're really going to be customer centric. But until now, and I don't have the full answer to it, but I'll give it a try, is the fact that it's not effective. It has not been effective so far within those organizations that are trying to do that. And for me, there's 2 elements to it that are more top-down oriented, which we are lacking, which is, first of all, a vision on customer engagement or on customer experience from a top level perspective, and supporting all of that, really not knowing it, but also which is associated with it, a lack of experience. And I come back to the designing of it, there's a lack of experience in designing and implementing that customer-centric strategy that is out there, which has to do with departments, which has to do with owning the customer, which has to do with understanding what they want and how they want it, and in that mix, being able to implement it. So it's very good that we're doing it from the bottom up, because that's where the real work comes in, and where they really need to deliver that experience. But at the same time, we also need to have support from a top level, where they're missing the vision and they also miss the experience in really designing it in the right perspective there.
I'm a great believer in that simple point that as you goal people, so they will behave. You know, it determines our perspective, our reality, our remuneration, etc., etc. So
agreed.
Clearly, as we still cluster around a specialized skills to get things done, from sales, marketing, distribution, whatever you want, finance, the kinds of goals that we need to have and the things that we need to do to improve our capability will always be within that team. Do you think practically then there needs to be an additional layer that sits almost above that, which are common statements of intent that unify us as a result of that vision that you've talked about?
We need orchestration. And there was something that when many years ago I met Tom Siebel for the first time, the CRM guru with the first CRM product that was out there. That was the vision. CRM was obviously the electronic Rolodex that everybody could see within the organization. Which was a great thing, because then we wouldn't send every time the same person to the same another person to the same company and annoy the hell out of them. But the secondary element of what his initial thoughts with CRM is that it's a joint effort to help the customer. So if there is a sale to be made by sales, it gets into their quota as a quota carrier, and therefore they get their bonuses. But what if if the contact center or the customer service department was able to help also that customer in repetitive orders that needed to be made? I'm thinking about a wholesale flower company at the time. That's an expensive account manager doesn't need to go every time to the big companies, because the big companies could just order through the contact center. And who is going to be compensated for that? Is that the customer service person, or is it the salesperson? Or can we think about a way where both of them would profit from that conversation, or from those orders that are coming in? So that was the original idea when we were setting up CRM within organizations. So I can only 100% agree with your point there, that next to vision, next to bottom up or top down thinking about customer experience, you definitely also need to do something about the structure of compensation. And if you change an organization from departmental sales, service, marketing orientation to a more customer focused perspective on things, that's where you both benefit from a good experience and therefore repetitive sales, or from a bigger purchase, or from a better share of wallet, or however you want to call it.